Hello, welcome to J Lowe Artist YouTube channel. Today we'll be doing some drawing with graphite. So get out your pencils, your cotton swab, kneaded eraser, anything that you think you need to draw with. Have it right handy, and let's draw together. Remember, art makes life better.
That's our reference, that's our scrap, that's what we want to be drawing. So we're going to start with the number 2 pencil. And the way we're going to start drawing is like this. If your pencil is down on your desk, you just pick it up. You can hold it somewhere towards the middle. Sometimes I'll hold it back here and sometimes I'll hold it up here. Depends on how heavy I want to draw. Usually I'm right in the middle, but you're just holding it like this, like you're going to show it to somebody. Hey, look at my pencil. And that's how we're going to draw. And I know that's weird, but we're going to draw with the side of our pencil like this. And there's basically 3 different reasons why we do that. First of all, it draws faster because you're going to be faster with your elbow and your shoulder than you are with your wrist. And your elbow and shoulder do better circles than your wrist does. The second thing is you get a better line. It's not a hard, thick line. It's just very soft and thin. The third reason is because everything is on the surface. And you can erase it, you can blend it, you can smear it, you can do all sorts of things when it stays on the surface. If you do this and you grind it into the surface, you'll never get rid of it. It'll always be there. So the first thing we want to do is simple shapes. We want to look at your scrap, your reference here, our little panda. And we're just going to start out with his body. And just the body, not the legs. And I'm just going to say, well, there's a branch that he's sitting on. It's about like this. So there's the branch. And his body is kind of laying across it, about like this, about that size. And his legs kind of come down, maybe about right there, up and over. This other leg kind of comes down, not quite that far, maybe about right there. Okay, simple shapes. We're just doing very simple shapes. His little head is just a circle. It's about right in here somewhere. The other end of that log is down in here somewhere, about even with the end of his paw, just a little bit below that. Have his paw drape a little bit below that. This other paw kind of comes down almost triangular, about like that. There's another paw that kind of comes off of that circle here, and you come straight down. It's just hanging down there. So you start out with simple shapes, circles, ovals, squares if you need them. There's a little triangle here where his ear is. As you come up off of this and just about even with where his body comes in, there's a little triangle right there. There's another one on the other side, little triangle up there. See how fast this is? Simple shapes again. I'm going to put in this little shape around his nose. Now this is not his nose, this is that area around his nose. And the little dark spots kind of come up in there. So that's the shape I'm looking at. And then kind of in the middle, off to the left a little bit, is his nose, and it's just a little circle too. His little mouth is just below it, it's a little line. Right up at the top of those, that little area there is his eyes, and there's one right there, and one on the other side. And if you go up, straight up from his nose, and straight down from his ear, that's about where his eye lines up. Close. It's not exact, but you will adjust to it. This is called proportioning. And as you draw, that's what you want to do. You want to find similarities and line them all up. Kind of like what we did with the log when we first started. We figured out the direction that it went. Now what I'm going to do with my pencil on the side like this, I'm just going to start shading in some areas. That shading is also going to help us to get our proportions. So I'm going to start here at the top, and I'm just going to shade in some little dark areas. Anywhere I see it's kind of dark. And I'm holding it back here so I don't press hard. I don't want to press hard right now. We don't need that contrast yet. Also, notice that my edges are very soft. They're kind of scribbly, but his fur is that way. And so in order to give that illusion of fur, we're just going to let that edge do its thing. We're just going to scribble in these little dark areas. If it's light, leave it out. So there's a little bit of light around the edge of his face. Just leave it out. When in doubt, leave it out, because you can always put it back in later. You probably noticed I haven't really erased anything yet either. I need all that graphite anyway. I'm going to draw it in anyway. Just leave it in. It isn't until later on that you can come back into it and go, well, I don't need that. Leave it out. So hopefully he's starting to look like a little critter. Maybe he doesn't quite look like a red panda yet, but he will. The more we're drawing on it, the better he'll look. Now, I'm not concerned that my edges and everything right now are perfect. That's not a big deal. The more I draw on it, the more it'll perfect. Drawing is kind of like looking through the lens of a camera, and you kind of focus. The more you draw, the more focused it becomes, the more realistic it becomes. And this is the way you draw everything. It doesn't matter if you're drawing a car or a flower or whatever it is, you kind of start out the same way. I am going to just fairly lightly put in some of those little gray areas. And the light areas around his face, I'm just going to leave those out. They're not white, so I can't just leave them out. But right now I'm going to. Only parts really that I would leave white are some of those highlights around his ear, but yet those are the edge, so I can't really leave them unless I do something in the background, which I could. You know, it's up to you. You're the artist. All the stuff in the tree, if you wanted to put some of that stuff in the tree, you could, but a lot of that we're going to use our cotton swab, because nobody cares about the tree. You know, you need it because it's part of the ground line, it's part of what he's sitting on. But nobody cares if they're bumped in the right place or not. You know, if his eyes are in the wrong spot, then people start caring about that. And that you want to adjust. So now I'm ready to clean up anything that I don't need. There's some little spots here I might want to clean up. This one down his nose, and clean that up. And this kneaded eraser is great to do that with. Even the edges, I'm just going to leave those. Unless it's really light, I might want to take them out completely. I might just take them completely out. Because it's okay to leave that out. Everybody knows it's there. And when we start blending it, we'll get it back in there. At this point, you start looking at your structure. You start looking at the composition. Is it in the right place? Does it look where it goes? Are the proportions correct? Is his head too big? Is it too small? And now that you have your point of reference, you start adjusting. So as I look at it, I think, okay, that little bump on his head was in the wrong spot. I need to move it over a little bit. So I draw it right first, and then erase what was wrong. If you erase what's wrong first, and then try to redraw it, you keep drawing it wrong, because you lose your point of reference. So I'm not worried about these little paws, little claws, or anything in there. Just want to get the right shape. So I'm going to go back in, and some of those little scribble areas, I'm just going to take those out and kind of shape it with my kneaded eraser. So now analyze it. Look at it. What is wrong? What can I change? when you're first learning how to draw, there's tons of things that you change. After a while, you're not changing as much. You need to move his little nose over just a little bit. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my cotton swab, and this one I started last period, so I already have some graphite on there. You want to keep these cotton swabs as long as you can, because once you load graphite into them, then you can draw immediately with it. If there's like a little leaf behind his head, I can draw that in using my cotton swab. See how easy that is to draw? And look how soft and light those things are. After a while, you're going to get this graphite on there. You just keep it. I have this little Altoids box. It looks like this. I keep my kneaded eraser, some cotton swabs in there, pencil sharpeners, things like that. Keeps it nice and clean. Keeps it away from everything else. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in with my cotton swab, and I'm just going to start blending some of that graphite. Because we use the side of our pencil, it's kind of on the surface, and we're able to manipulate it. We're able to blend it a little bit more. And so I'm just going to take that cotton swab and just get some of those really light grays that are in there. And our object starts to look kind of ghost-like. It's very light, very thin. But it starts to get a little smoother. And I can adjust things from here too. And say, well, this was a little thicker, or a little darker. Or I can use my cotton swab to help that. My edges that are very soft, like where his ear is, I can use my cotton swab to get that thin little edge. And can you see him kind of starting to come into focus? You don't have to do everything all over with that either. Just blend, 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 blend. Some of those nice grays, those edges, just let them go. If you can't see an edge, don't put it in there. When in doubt, leave it out. This becomes very important when you're using ink. So you'll hear me say that often. That little edge that I left out over there on his rear, because I'm starting to blend it in, it comes back in, but it's soft and fuzzy. Now we need some contrast. We need this thing to pop. It needs to jump off the page. And so what we're going to do is we're going to abandon our number 2 pencil, our HB pencil, in favor of that number 6B pencil. 6B is just a softer graphite, so you get more rubbed off onto your page. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start out that way. You can start out like this if you want, because right on his eye is really dark. And if I go in and just darken up around his eye, there's some lighter spots in the middle, and I really don't want to get too much of that lighter spot. So I'm just going to kind of keep some of that lighter spot in there. But look what that does. That just darkens it in, just makes it pop. That's your contrast. So anything else that is really dark, I'm going to do that. And this mode of drawing is detail mode. This is just fine. This is something you're all comfortable with. But don't get into detail mode till you've got everything else worked out. I usually do this right from the start in the face. Whether I'm drawing a human face or an animal face, those faces are very important. That's where your eye goes. That's your emphasis area. His mouth was in the wrong spot, so I'm going to adjust it right now. Go up a little higher. His other eye. Now that I've done the eyes, the nose, and the mouth, that's what's important. Now I can shift back to this because this is faster, and I'm going to get some of those darker areas in. If you go in the direction that the fur flows, it'll end up looking like fur. So as you draw, you scribble. Don't be afraid to scribble in the direction that the fur flows. Don't do hard edges. Just scribble it back and forth. Anything that's dark, I can come back in with my cotton swab and I can blend it. They make a graphite pencil that is nothing but graphite. It has no wood on it at all. It's called Woodless Graphite. Looks kind of like this. This one broke. When you drop them, they shatter like glass. So I just keep an end. That way I can draw a little faster because there's all graphite. And the key here is quick, drawing as fast as you can. Number one, because if you're drawing from life, let's say this little animal is posing for us, he's not going to stay there all day. If you're drawing a human, it's hard to hold that pose. So you want to draw as fast as you can. The other thing is if you start doing this for money, time is money. You know, if you're spending 10 hours on a drawing and you're getting paid $500, well, that's $50 an hour. That's not bad. But if you're spending 20 hours on it, $25 an hour. And sometimes I just get bored with it and I want to draw fast. Get it done, get it over with. You see what that contrast does? Just makes it pop. There's a little line called a feathered line where you drop in your pencil and you flick it. And that gives you a little feathered line. It's great for hair, fur especially, but any short kinds of hair, feathers, it's good for feathers as well. So try that feathered line. That is something that you kind of practice as well. One thing that this dark stuff does too is it becomes kind of like a well that you can draw from. It's almost like painting with dry medium. In other words, I can take my cotton swab and I can come into this, I can blend it, pick up some of that graphite, and then I can come back into my area and I can draw with this cotton swab and darken in some of these areas. Now when I was in school, they made us use our fingers. And I always had trouble with that because my fingers would get messy and then I'd scratch my nose or something and suddenly I've got war paint all over me. People laugh at you. So I came up with this whole cotton swab idea. And it's more controllable, it's cleaner, but you can do so much more with this than you can with your fingers. Like all those branches and leaves back in there. Once you get enough on there, you can use that to create leaves branches. Here's some leaves back in there. Here's some bark on the tree. You can use that to get that bark. Hopefully that starts to make sense to you. It's a faster way to draw and become more accurate. And the more you draw on your object, the better it looks. You can make this thing look very photographic, but it just takes time. Detail always takes more time. When I build a suit of armor, and it has brass or something on it and makes it nice, it'll take me a day to do a set of elbows and another day just to put the brass on it. Detail just takes time. It just does. I look at some of the stuff that was done, back in the Renaissance, that is just gorgeous. I imagine how much time it took to carve that out by hand or to paint it or whatever. It just is amazing. I think people don't understand how much time detail takes. So now I've really got quite a bit of graphite on my cotton swab. I'm just going to use that to my advantage. Use it to get your fur. Use it for your background. Use it to thin things out. Make them smoother. You can always add more too. So you think, well, it's just not as dark as I want it to go. Well, just add more graphite. Cool thing about drawing too is it becomes what you want it to become. You know, yours doesn't have to look like mine to be good. But eventually you're all going to get your own voice. It's kind of like when you were in kindergarten, first grade, they taught you all how to write, taught you the same writing technique, but now all of your writing is different. If you were to sign your name, it's different. You've developed your own voice and your writing style. Drawing will be the same. You first start out and everything's very similar, kind of draw like Mr. Lowe. Then after a while, you'll develop your own voice. Your own style, and that's cool. That's why art is so important, is because it's individual. Nobody else can do it the way you do it. You can take your kneaded eraser and pull out any of the light areas. All you got to do is just touch it with your kneaded eraser and it'll come out. So like, he's got a little whisker there. If I just take my kneaded eraser and just draw it along there. Any of those really light areas, you can take your kneaded eraser and just pull those out. There's a little shine in his eye. I pull that out with my kneaded eraser. The last thing you can do is just little details with your pencil, whatever you feel like you need. If it needs some softer edges, just do some feathered lines along those softer edges. The drawing is just kind of controlled scribbling, learning how to scribble. So just layer in that graphite, just a little bit here, a little bit there. The more you layer in, the better it's going to look. So as far as the tree branch goes, just throw in some value to it. Scribble those in, because there's a lot of texture in there. Don't be afraid to leave little areas out. You can just blend those in with your cotton swab. Don't be concerned about drawing edges around everything. Somewhere somebody might have taught you how to draw cartoons. Cartoons are just like real life, but they're simplified. You want to take it a step beyond that. Don't draw edges around things. One of the last things you want to do after you've detailed it and done it the way you want it to do is a good signature. And the signature is part of your design. You could put it over here, or you could put it down here, wherever you want to put it. Don't put it right on the edge, because if you frame it, it's going to cover it up. So I'm just going to put mine right there. The signature is also your copyright. Whenever you do a piece of artwork, it's automatically copyrighted once you sign it. And basically, that's it. I mean, not much more I can tell you about drawing with graphite like this. Most of it is just practice. Thanks for coming along on this journey with me today. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope that you've learned something and want to practice more of it. You can go to my YouTube channel and practice along with me on many other drawings that we've got there. This one will be up there soon. Usually takes me a couple days to get them up. Just remember, art makes life better. It just does. That's about all the time we have. Hope you have a lovely day.